Spring ball is right around the corner, and guess what? Friday is the new Thursday. I know that makes no sense. Those two things don't correlate, but y'all have a lot of questions about Michigan football. We are 12 days away from the start of spring ball as a general beginning, and thus we are starting to look forward to that. We're taking all of your questions and answering them right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. We have pushed the mailbag from Thursday to Friday, thanks to things running long for me at church last night. But we are going to go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and start up with our leaders and best, James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Where do you stand on recruits that take missions, Rider Lions, this cycle? Do you feel that Michigan shouldn't really focus on kids who aren't playing for multiple years? No, I think they absolutely should. It's just one of those things that even though you slot them in with like a certain class, right, you're also looking at it in terms of when do they actually arrive, right? Like, obviously, Gatlin Bear was someone they were targeting from last year. You don't look at it and say, like, okay, now we've got him in as a receiver. With Rider Lions, you don't necessarily look at, okay, now we've got our quarterback. And I think it's actually kind of a thing that bodes well. I think this was Steve Dace, my buddy, that said this online. It's actually kind of perfect because Rider Lions being a 2026 recruit technically, but not going to arrive until 2028. What that does, essentially, it would coincide well with, and I think you still need to get another quarterback, right? But it could coincide well with the extensivity don't have a word of Bryce Underwood's tenure at Michigan, right? Because it'll be 2025, 2026, 2027, and you have to assume that's it, right, for him. So then Rider Lions would have the ability to come in and be the guy. However, at the same time, I don't know that you can count on him and being like a freshman starter, right? But at least that would kind of tell you, like, okay, they need to get someone else that can maybe, be that bridge. I'm fine with it. You just have to like look at it in terms of, when do they actually arrive rather than what class are they in. I think that's kind of the better way to look at it. Josh Barajadicki, what do Moore and the other coaches need to do to improve wide receiver recruiting? How much is Landing Bryce really helping with that? Or will the recruits need to see an improvement in the offense first? I think they're doing fine. I don't know that they need to. I mean, they have to sell the vision. It helps having the quarterback. It helps having the offensive coordinator. I think it will become more evident, yes, when they are able to see it, right? There's a reason why, even though Ohio State is not as explosive in the passing game as it once was, Buckeyes, before you come at me, like you can't tell me that Will Howard is on the same plane as Dwayne Haskins was, right? When they were throwing, or Justin Fields or CJ Stroud, when they were throwing for closer to 5,000 yards a season, right? But there are still wide receivers breaking down the door to get there because it has a reputation of being wide receiver U. So you do need a little bit of that, but Michigan's also in good shape. Like it's going to get Tristan Keys on campus. He's the top wide receiver in the class. They've had those moments, right? Donovan Peoples-Jones was the top wide receiver in the class, albeit it didn't shake out that way and he was a local product. But I think that you just need to establish a reputation of we're going to throw the ball and you're going to get yours. And right now, Michigan's not in that spot at all. So that's part of it. Perfect timing here, even though he doesn't ask about it. Jimmy Whitner 1 doesn't ask about Zuri, and Zuri, right as I'm doing that, she decides to come in. So let's see if we can get her up. Come on, come up here. Come here. Join the show. There we go. Get the puppy on the lap. We'll see how long she can stick with the show here. Jimmy Whitner asks, will you be covering the spring game? Of course, I think you ask that every year, and every year the answer is yes. I cover everything football. I just missed the Indiana game because it was my birthday this year. Who would your way too early pick be for offensive and defensive MVP? Defensive, I'm going to go with Rayshon Benny. Now I got to get this above Zuri's head. Rayshon Benny might be defensive. Offensive, probably whoever the quarterback is. But it could also be Justice Haynes. That would also be... So, because we don't know and because there could be a quarterback switch, I'll go with Justice Haynes. I think that it's going to be him. KRT at Farmer84, which offseason move was more important? Hiring Chip Lindsey, retaining Wink, or bringing in Juan Castillo to help with the OL? Hiring Chip Lindsey. because even if you don't retain Wink, you've got a lot of experience of guys who could, and they would have found someone that would have known how to run that system if it was Danton Lynn or someone like that. And, but I think hiring Chip Lindsey at least brings the offense into the 21st century a bit. Juan Castillo helping with the OL, I think that's fine, but I don't know. That's third on my list. That's all I'll say about that. Finishing us out in segment one and one of our shorter segment ones, because I'm trying to get through everything because we got a lot to get to. Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore. How would you define success for Sherrone Moore's second year? At least a 1-game improvement, not losing in any blowout situations, contending for the college football playoff and not being eliminated by midseason there. I would say that would be it, right? Like I don't necessarily think making it, although that would be huge. But I mean, you can be in Alabama's situation, and I think that shows some modicum of success, right? But that's what I would say. Now, I think Michigan's certainly capable of making the playoff this year, especially with the schedule. If it can endure Oklahoma and Nebraska, I think they're in good shape. So that's what I got. All right, we're going to continue on. We've got plenty more coming up here in just a moment. But before we do, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's just no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed any chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. So right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we have a very demure puppy joining us still for segment 2, and she's just going to get right up in my face. She wants all of the attention all the time, and she just could not bear the idea of sitting in the other room without me. So here she is. This is Zuri, and I think that, but I don't know what she's doing. She looks like she's going to climb up on the desk, and I don't know what that's all about. So sorry for that. You can't see my face. Zuri's face is much prettier than mine, so just deal with it. Let's go with starting with our leaders and best. Victor's Valiant. Jim in the North. Why, with all our tradition, money, and recent success, do we seem to be unable to pull 5 stars at the rate of OSU? Academics being number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? That's a big part of it, is the academics part. Number 2, Ohio State hasn't had any significant drop-offs like Michigan has. So that's part of it, too. I'll leave your imagination to other things, kind of going back to the Jim Tressel era. That's what I'll go with. He continues, I'm worried about Michigan fan expectations. Yes, Underwood is a huge talent, but we have a question mark on the O-line still in kind of a meh receiving room. Nem fans seem to have terminal recency bias. Am I being too negative, or can this offense struggle for a while, not unlike last year? It's not going to struggle to the level it did last year. Like, yes, there's questions, but they should be better than they were, right? Like, the wide receiver room is not going to be worse. The quarterback position is better. The offensive line likely will not be worse. So, and then you've got, like mentioned before, Chip Lindsey coming in. You've got Juan Castillo coming in. All those things help Michigan. Now, does that mean playoff or bust? No, it does not. I think it means modicum of improvement. 9 wins, 10 wins, I think is kind of more of what you should be looking at as a successful season. But could they exceed that? Absolutely. And the schedule, like I said earlier, helps with that as well. Chubbs GB, I talk with Chubbs. What's up, my guy? Hope all is well. It is. Thank you very much for asking. What's something you see just having to happen in order for this team to be back in the championship game? I'm assuming you mean Big Ten championship game, not the national. It would have to be the offensive line coalescing and looking like it did in 2021, which is possible. It's a high bar, but it's not an inescapable bar. Right. It's one where I could see that happening. Right. Like Greg Crippen's entering his second year. He hasn't started even a full year, entering another year as being a starter. Giovanni Ohadi and Evan Link learn from their mistakes. They plug in 2 other guys, whether it's Andrew Sprague, Lawrence Tatar, Nathan Afobe. Those guys step up. I think that they would be in a great situation there. The other part would be a lack of injuries, but I think that there's a lot that could make you think like, okay, they could absolutely get back there. the schedule helps a ton, again, because we've gone through the schedule early in the week. It does not have a lot of those teams on there that you want to avoid. It does not have Penn State, does not have right now, Indiana or Illinois, which has got the most returning experience. They do have USC, they do have Nebraska, and they obviously have Ohio State, but they avoid a lot of the teams that you want to avoid, which is kind of great. Edwin Simmons at Simmons_Edwin. Happy Friday, my brother in Christ. I changed Thursday to Friday. Proud of your weight loss, looking good. It's lifestyle. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Maybe that's why my legs aren't as big. That's why Zuri's struggling to sit on me here. What are you hearing about the spring game? Are we live or situational? As far as I'm hearing, according to Sherrone Moore on the Crane and Company podcast, they're still evaluating, but he prefers it to be live, and it will likely still be live. When will you be at spring practice to give us an update on who's looking good, etc.? Now, here's the thing. I won't be at spring practice, but we have interviews, right? They do not let us see anything, but we'll get to actually start asking questions. I would guess that's going to come in the last week of March, because they start on we'll probably get, if they start on the 18th, which I believe is the case, or the 19th, we'll get probably Wink and Chip Lindsey probably the day before or the day of, something like that. And then we'll start having probably 2 or 3 media availabilities from there on in. Jacob Shavaria, thoughts on teams canceling spring games? Seems kind of selfish if you have a player that is not going to start but could shine elsewhere. Shouldn't the team as a whole decide if they want to have it or not? I bet the majority would vote yes. Is Michigan actually having theirs? We kind of answered that it appears that they will fully have theirs. As far as other teams, I understand in college football is paranoid. They're going to do things to try to, to mitigate, different things. I don't think it matters that much, right? Because they can have basically a spring game that people don't see. Any team, right? You can literally do it just without having a crowd. Now, here's the thing, though. As Michigan has said it, we like having our spring game because it's the first time some of these guys get to make plays in front of fans, and that's kind of the bigger part. But as far as actual scrimmages and stuff like that, it's you can do that behind closed doors, right? Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. Wink said on the In the Trenches podcast that Rod Moore hasn't run yet. Can we even expect him to be 2023 Rod Moore if it's taking this long for him to recover? Seems to me that some combination of Hillman, Curtis, Mangum would be a better option unless he has time to ramp up. I mean, he'll still have time to ramp up. I'm sure they'll figure something out. But keep in mind, he did not really start playing until week 4 of 2023. And he was still a backup in week 5. He started kind of getting in a little bit in week 6. It wasn't until the latter half of the season that we saw the Rod Moore that you know and love. So plenty of time. I wouldn't worry too much about it. The Rican Raider at Hamstand 87. This funny Siri on camera just has to. This is what she does when she wants attention. She lifts. If you're listening, you have no idea. She lifts her head like this because she wants attention, and she's getting the attention. So I don't know why she does it, but it's like, why aren't you petting me? That's what she's doing. Yes, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about Zuri. Yeah, she doesn't know. Rican Raider. If you had to compare Jordan Marshall to a past Michigan running back, who does he strike you as being most similar to? Also, good work on the weight loss. I dropped 10 and it's not easy, let me tell you. Thank you. Hoping to drop another about 15 pounds and then we'll be good. I don't really have a good way of doing that, honestly. There's not someone in particular. I will say this, he kind of reminds me, and feel free to disagree with me. I definitely didn't have a good enough knowledge on football to be able to make this, but to me, it kind of reminds me of Chris Perry a little bit. That's kind of that's where my head goes. Is that accurate? I don't know, but I haven't exactly, since I've gotten to know and understand football, I haven't exactly gone back and rewatched a lot of Chris Perry highlights to be like, okay, but that's kind of the best one that I can think of is like a Chris Perry type. I'm not the one at William Cawthorne 9. Other than yourself, does Connor have a relationship with anyone else at the university? Now, I'm not at the university. I hope you know that. This is all my own thing, essentially. But as far as those actually at the university, no, thanks to the investigation. As far as people in the media, like me, there are a couple others. There's some that I've introduced him to, and some other. Obviously, he met up with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton for bussing with the boys. He told me about that at the Washington game beforehand that he's thinking about doing that. And there's some other people that he occasionally talks to that I had connected him with. I didn't just keep them all to myself the whole time, but just for most of the time, it was kind of like Maryland week is when he had his first conversation with some people that were in the media that are not, and there's a couple national people too that I think he occasionally talks to as well. Will Michigan go out on one of their trips they've gone on, or was that just a Harbaugh thing? I know that they wanted to, but I think that's kind of changed with the NIL of it all, because not right now Sherrone's wanting to get all of the money he can get into NIL to support the team. So that would be I don't think the trip's going to happen anytime soon unless they figure out how to do both. Since the roster has to be 105 now, do you know if it's exactly that number or less, and what happens if it's more? I have no idea, to be honest. So I'm just going to sidestep that one. LR Baird at Luke Baird 2016. Outside of obvious upgrade at quarterback, was the team's biggest area of improvement, if any? I mean, I think defensive line, it's kind of weird because you might have lost two. I think it's just deeper, I think, is kind of the way I look at defensive line right now. It's just deeper. It's not necessarily better. I just think it's deeper. I'd say that it's the same thing at safety, though. That's kind of also relying on some freshmen. I think running back too. Like not a knock on Dono and Kalel. Dono had some of the best things that we've seen against Ohio State, and Kalel did so too this year. But I think the ceiling's been raised there. Brett Byer at Brett Byer 6, is Rod Moore 100% for spring ball? No, as just kind of mentioned, he's not even running at this point, so it's a big negative there. Clark at Blue for Life 8, would you like the spring game to stay the way it is or go back to 1 versus 2? So I'd rather it went back to 1s versus 2s, because then I feel like you can actually glean something. Like, we'll glean things. I'll have takeaways. I'll have like 10 takeaways from the spring game and all of that stuff. It's harder to glean things by unit because you have to get more look at individual. So I do wish it would go 1s versus 2s more, because then you could kind of really figure out what's actually happening. Finishing us out, 2 similar ones. Great Bambino X at Colossus X. What's the latest on the NOA? What kind of punishment should we expect? Anything you can share from Stallions? I haven't talked to Connor about NOA stuff in about a month and a half. And due to some of the personal things that have gone on. Oh, there we go. Now we're laying half on the desk. Personal things on my life. So he's been there for me as a friend, the same way that I was there for him as a friend before. So when I've talked to him, we haven't talked really about any of that. Then you've got TB take 3 underscore TB. Did the NCAA respond to Michigan's NOA response? I haven't heard anything. I know that desk. There we go. Now we're continuing. If you're on video, you might have caught some of that. Actually, you wouldn't have caught any of that because I mute the video. Anyway, I don't know why. This is the danger of having a dog up here. I've not heard anything, but I know that there's some of those Buckeye people are trying to make it sound like stuff. Like, listen, there's a lot of they don't understand the process. Even if the NCAA responds, that doesn't mean like that's what's happening. There still has to be the process, the committee of infractions and all these kinds of stuff. I don't know that there's anything new. Certainly nothing got out yesterday. I don't think that the certain things that I've seen kind of people posting on my social media of some podcasts and stuff, or you know, the typical Buckeye scoop trying to say stuff's happening. I think that some of the other powers that be, Ross Dellinger or someone like that, is going to have it before them in this particular case. So there's that. All right, we're going to continue on. We've got plenty more to come. Probably not enough time to get to them. I say that every time, and now we end up at 24 minutes. We'll see what happens here. We're going to get to more here in just a moment. But before we do, we're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow to up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. All right, we're going to finish out. We still got plenty more. I still have a puppy on my lap. She might not be as visible. I don't get it. I don't understand. Anyway, Nick at Nick Austin 13, not a Michigan question, but what are 3 sections in the Bible that you would recommend Christians now turning back to God should first start reading as they get back into the habit of daily devotions? I mean, the first and foremost, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Matthew, Mark, and Luke are all similar. They're called the synoptics or synaptic. Do I have that right? I don't know. I'm just kind of I'm blanking there. So they're all very similar. Matthew's a little bit more comprehensive. They all have their different purposes. Matthew is let me see. Luke is writing to Gentiles. Mark is writing to, I don't remember who Mark was writing to. And Matthew's writing to Jews, I believe is how that went. And then John's a completely different narrative there. So and has a bit more that it fleshes out. Like whereas you're going to find a lot of the same stories in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So I would go to the Gospels first because that's where Jesus actually is speaking, and you can hear the parables directly. You can come to understand what he's trying to say. After that, I really like the Pauline epistles because that's telling you what the church's role is. I would include Acts with that because it shows the formation of the church and the church being the body of Christ. So I would look at it as go then to from Romans through, and I would include the Peter's books, James, Jude, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John in that as well. But I would read the Pauline epistles and the writings of the apostles because that's next. After that, I think that Psalms and Proverbs, because it kind of teaches you some wisdom as well as praise and songs and stuff. And Psalms kind of hard for someone like me, even though I love poetry. It's for whatever reason it's hard for me to sink in. So I just have been taking like 10 a day and just reading 10 a day. And, you've kind of just get a little bit of what it's like to worship God. Also how to worship him when you feel downtrodden, how to worship him when everything's great, right? Like and there's just a lot of little nuggets of wisdom in Psalm. So that would be the 3 that I would go to personally first. Racist Pancake. It's funny to go from that to at Pancake Racist. Is it unfair to me to be disappointed if we don't make the playoffs next year? No, I mean, I think that I would lower your expectations slightly because I think that they should improve. I don't know that they'll improve that much necessarily, but the schedule is amenable. Todd at Toddy Brown Jr. If Hill isn't the cornerback 2, would Josiah Edmond be the most likely that guy, or most likely be that guy rather? Because I can't read. It's possible. We could see what they do in the spring portal. But yeah, I'd say that would be the most likely behind Jair Hill at this stage. But don't count out Shamari Earls either. Be a Goldfish at I can't even read. I don't know why. J-Lo-B. Best guess at the starting quarterback for game number 2 at Oklahoma. I'm going to stick with Mikey Keene for now until something proves me different. Josh Lilly at Josh C. Lilly 8. Who will be wide receiver 1 next year? I'm going to go with Donovan McCulley. I still think it's going to be him. We'll see if they are able to get A again. I don't know that they will. If he has to re-enter the portal. If they get Skylar Bell, I think that would change in a hurry. That's what I'm going to say there. Jeff Cross at Jeff X Dog with 3 numbers I dare not repeat. Do you think Michigan football will be playing in Indianapolis this season? I do not. I think that there will at least be 2 teams better in the Big Ten. I personally right now would go Penn State, and I'd say Penn State, Illinois would be where I would go personally right now. That's just me. Very much could be wrong. That's just my way too early prediction. Illinois, again, returning so many players, including the quarterback. I think they're just going to be a lot better than people think. Ralph Wolf at Ralph Wolf 1968. Is Jaden Davis going to be on the team in September? Yes. He's indicated he has no intentions of going anywhere. If he loses the job, again, I would expect him to leave after he graduates. I think he wants that Michigan degree. Now, could he end up being a part of this team and actually playing? He absolutely could. Even with Bryce is starting, right? Like, it just kind of depends on how things go. And Sherrone Moore was praising Jaden Davis, saying people are overlooking him on the Crane and Company podcast yesterday, or day before yesterday, whatever day that was. Mike Matthews at Michigan. Mike, how much access does the media get to spring practice? None. Has there been a change with that since Coach Moore took over? Nope. Saladin, however, Paisano, too deep at linebacker. Interested to see where Barham ends up getting the most snaps. I think he'll still get the most snaps at linebacker. So I'm still going Ernest Hausman and Jayshawn Barham as your starting linebackers. And then Troy Bowles and Jaden Hood is the next. And certainly you're going to see a heavy dose of Jimmy Rolder. Actually, probably Jimmy Rolder ahead of Jaden Hood. And then you'll see Jaden Hood and Cole Sullivan and Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. It's a deep group. K-Lob 711 at the same name. Michigan seems to be on a good trajectory right now. Recruiting is on the rise. NIL, Sherrone's growth, and more. With the above in mind, is it possible for Michigan to win 2 more natties in the next 10 years? What might be some of the biggest challenges to overcome? God bless. Thank you very much. God bless you as well. I think that it's absolutely possible that they can. I think it's the biggest thing is the culture. Having the culture, everyone pulling in the same direction, and making sure that you still have dominance along both lines. As much as we complain about the offensive line, it held its own against Ohio State and Alabama. So you at least need to have that as a baseline throughout the year. And then obviously defensive line looks nasty. Now they have to try to figure out how to maintain that going forward. I think they need to recruit defensive tackle better than they have the last couple cycles. And I think that would be kind of behoove them. But I think that it's absolutely possible, especially just kind of given, obviously receiver too. Like you just have to be a little bit better as far as some of that stuff. But I think it's absolutely possible. Will it happen? I don't know, but I think it's absolutely possible. It's harder now because it's not just, I mean, it's harder in some ways because it used to just have to be like you have to be one of the 4 best teams. Now you don't, but you have more teams you have to go through. So it's a kind of a give and take. I still hate it. Joe at I Knows Ball was talking to a Buckeye on here about the importance of the game versus a natty. I think everyone can agree that a loss to your biggest rival in a season that you win the natty was worth it. But how many consecutive losses to your rival is the max you'd take to win a natty? Not as many as Ohio State has. So that's all I would say. Not as many as they have. Because yeah, that's all. I don't have much more. Here I gotta figure out how to put some space in here. Man, because I can't read with the way my TV is set up here. I can't read what we got there. There we go. Now I can read. Justin Rambron, at J Rambron, happy Friday after the disastrous commentary performance from last year. Can we ban Gus from calling our future games? Joel Klatt, on the other hand, does a great job. I mean, it was a weird game for Gus. I'm not going to deny that. But again, he's a Michigan fan. I know people don't think so based off of the things he says. He is a giant Michigan fan. How do I know that? Not to sound like Joel. Well, Joel, how do you know that? Well, because Gus and I have talked about it. He's a giant Michigan fan. I know him personally. Method Man 8, at Method Man 8, with the success of Jordan Marshall showed in the bowl game and us getting Justice Haynes. Does Chip Lindsey have plays designed to have both running backs in the backfield? And do you think we could see that this year? I think we could see it this year. I don't know, though. He wants to design things off of what he has, the players and personnel he has, and we haven't seen anything. So it's kind of hard to even look back at what he's done before. And keeping in mind, he really rode Omarion Hampton at North Carolina. I don't know. But I wouldn't necessarily better count on it right now, but maybe. Finishing us out, Chillin' Bro at Lawrence, 389, 42, 697. Michigan recently won a national championship and brought in a top 10 recruiting class. Why do you feel that we are struggling to secure 2025 recruits? Or I think you mean, it does say 26. I just need glasses. And what do we need to change about the program to attract more talent in the future? They're not struggling. It's early. Everyone that Michigan wants is on the board. That's just kind of the thing. Like people are like, oh, every other team. It's like, but all the ones that Michigan wants are still on the board. Jackson Cantwell, Tristan Keys, Ryder Lyons. That's just like the top of the top at the moment, right? Like everyone they want still on the board. They haven't really lost. The only one that they've lost is Victor Singleton, and there's a long way to go until signing day. So I wouldn't fret it. I think they're fine. I would just, we do this every year, and people at this time, April and May, are freaking out, and by the end of June, everyone's like, why were we freaking out? I don't remember. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We are going to be back on Sunday. We're going to do a post-game MSU, end-of-season basketball, and whatever football stuff we have to talk about as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.